Derek, thanks again for being a guest on Wicked Smart Golf podcast. Really stoked to learn some wedge secrets from you today.
Thanks for having me on.
It's been cool to follow you, man. You've done a great job just with growing your brand and sharing so much. So first off, just want to give you a lot of props there, and excited to help people with the short game, because one of the pillars of Wicked Smart Golf that I say is learning how to become a wedge wizard. I feel like so many guys are at the driving range all the time and working on their full swing and really neglecting the short game. So that's why I felt like had to bring you on to hopefully simplify that process so we can save some shots around the green.
Yeah, I mean, we'd all like to hit it like Rory or Scotty Scheffler, but realistically, everyone can improve, on and around the greens, and it's an easy way to score better.
Yeah, and we were talking before, we get into all the wedge stuff and helping people with that side of it, just our love of the game and how fortunate we are to do what we do and to really find that passion. And when I was researching you, that really seemed like one of the biggest themes is just how much you love the game. So kind of take us back to how you got into this teaching side of things, because this story I read about your first student was really inspiring.
Yeah, my first student, Adam Cranston, great dude. Such a bad golf swing. I mean, great. And we laugh about it all the time. The greatest guy, great chipper, great putter, but a swing you wouldn't wish upon anyone. So yeah, he gained, I think it was 30 strokes in here. He went from 102 to 72. It was really incredible. And he's really got great touch. He's so funny, great dude. And that kind of got me into, in the golf business. I've been in it for a while, but the teaching side and really playing that evolves into teaching are my favorite things.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of the passion that I would have, it'd be hard to have the passion I have in this game if I didn't play and love playing in tournaments and love testing myself and then putting myself in the same situations that students are in.
Mm-hmm.
So I really personally love that, and that kind of comes into this passion.
Yeah, and I think I was reading, I don't know if it was on your website or a different article, but one of the reasons you really started getting into the short game was just not hitting it quite as far as some of the other guys. And that's something that I could relate to, because in high school, I was 4'10" when I went into high school, weighing $110. So, I was sitting at about 200 yards on a good day. So quickly I learned that I got to figure out the short game, and I just lived at the chipping green, lived at the putting green. I would turn my Honda Civic lights on at night to putt a little bit more. So it sounds like you just got kind of like Phil Mickelson, just experimenting early on, trying to understand just different short game shots. Is that kind of help you really get to that next level when you were, in high school and college?
Yeah. So I think it goes back to, I grew up in Minnesota, and our Elk River Golf high school team was the best in the state. We'd have over 100 kids try out. Tryouts were 4 weeks.
Wow.
It was insane. So it's such a big deal. And then in 8th grade, I was kind of shooting 90s. The coach, Dave Conley, was a Minnesota legend. He kind of gave me a chance on some JV events, but then really to make the team, I knew I had to improve my scoring. And in 8th grade, that's the first golf book I got, was the Dave Pell's Short Game Bible.
Nice.
Literally maybe bigger than the actual Bible. So I just
huge.
dove in and, looked into it and tried to learn as much as I can. And then from there, that really got me scoring better. So I would, in the course we grew up on, Elk River Country Club, the greens are so small. So almost, even if you hit the ball perfectly, the greens are almost so small to hit that you'd be chipping a lot. And I would be I got so good at short game where I would miss 9 greens and get up and down 9 times and make 9 pars, and then even par. I mean, you had to shoot 1 to 2 over on 9 to make varsity, and then JV was still, you had to be able to shoot 70s, low 80s. I mean, it was a super competitive team. So that's really what brought me up to that team. And then it kind of holds a special place, I guess, in my heart, because it got me good. It was where my passion was, and I was kind of known for kind of being a short game guy in high school, and then it's, I guess, carried on to now.
That's awesome, man. We have a very similar story there. I remember one time in high school, I hit 2 greens in regulation and shot 74, and we had very small greens, and I just was never a very good ball striker. So yeah, I had to figure it out. And I still love, I'm sure you do too, when you have those rounds today, when you're just kind of slapping it around, but you're still shooting par or better. It wears your playing partners down when you have a good short game.
Yeah, and it's unfortunately it's got me really comfortable. I'm ready to miss 18 greens, so it really doesn't phase me compared to maybe those who bank on their ball striking a little bit more. Of course, I'd love to hit 18 greens,
Hmm.
but I'm ready to start scrambling from the start. So it really helps my mindset on the course, and it helps me kind of handle any situations. I'm just ready to battle from the start.
I love it. Well, let's help people with the short game because scrambling and different shots around the greens are plaguing so many everyday golfers and a lot of listeners of the show. So before we get into specific shots, I wanted to ask you about equipment because to me, to play wicked smart golf, to really get the most out of your game, you got to have the right sticks. Otherwise, you're just making golf even harder. So do you recommend 3 or 4 wedges, or how do people figure out which one's going to be a better fit for them?
Yeah, it's really just preference. A lot of tour guys do play 3 wedges. Again, based on Dave Pelz, I was a 4 wedge guy because it's what Dave Pelz said. That's what Tom Kite did. So I go 60, 55, 50, and then a modern pitching wedge is 45 now. So that's kind of my 4. It's really whatever fits best in your gaps. So a lot of that is just pure preference. So I leave that a lot up to the student and what really best fills their gaps.
How important do you think like bounce and having the right lie angle is as well?
Yeah, it's very important. Again, you want to have clubs that fit you well. In general, as I see students get too low of bounce clubs in Arizona, they tend to dig in more than they would like. So bounce can really be your friend, and finding that right bounce and grind can just make your wedges a little more forgiving. And that's what we're looking to do is we don't always need to hit perfect shots in short game, but we want our bad shots to be good. And club technology is a big part of that. I'm with Ping. Their research, their R&D, their wedges, I think are the best in the business. Of course, there's other companies and other great brands out there. So it's really trying and seeing what works best for you. And then really, I like, what works best for you under your highest pressure, your, tournament pressure for us. So then that's really where you want to test yourself.
Yeah, I'm right there, man. I made one of the biggest mistakes is having a lob wedge with 4 degrees of bounce, and I don't know why. Like I don't know why I was doing that. So I think it's lob wedge is at 8, sand wedge is at 10. What do you think is probably the lowest most guys should have for the average playing
Yeah,
conditions?
I mean that's kind of a miss. You hear it a lot, like in the desert. Oh, you need low bounce,
Mm-hmm.
and there's like some logic there, but I see it ruin a lot of. It doesn't help a lot of the average players. Like I use 10 degrees of bounce, and I don't need any lower, and I play off tight lies. And again, there's different things I can do with the club to help that.
Mm-hmm.
I came from playing super low bounce wedges back in Minnesota. I was very kind of hinge and hold, so I was kind of I didn't really know much about it. I didn't know how to really use the bounce back then, and they worked fine. I had a great short game. But then as I came down here and started to learn more things, like I use 10 degrees of bounce and I just don't feel like I need lower.
Mm-hmm.
So it's for the average person, in my opinion, I would use, when you're trying to hit a pitch shot, like the highest bounce reasonable. So kind of what you mentioned, like I don't love a lot less than 8. It's very player dependent. It's whatever works for sure. That's always the number one rule of thumb. But
Mm-hmm.
in general, the more bounce can be more helpful.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say I've always heard bounce is your friend, and ever since I switched switched clubs, that definitely made
Yeah.
a big difference. Not trying to make golf any harder than it already is. And one of the hardest shots in golf for I would say the everyday golfer is just getting out of the sand. So I wanted to start there. I did a poll yesterday when I let the audience know you were coming on the show. That was the number one thing people said they're struggling with. So you've done hundreds, if not thousands, probably of lessons at this point, and worked with the best golfers in the world to probably 30, 40 handicaps. What's the biggest mistake that most people make out of the sand?
Yeah, I would say there's a few things. So a lot of it, people kind of psych themselves out, and I see a lot of people get corkscrewed. I'll do some examples. Actually, I'm gonna stand up. So a lot of times you'll see people get set right, and they get like super open, and they get the face open, and they get so contorted, and they get so mangled because they hear, open your stance, open your face. And they do all these things, and that's fine. But the average person struggles they struggle with getting like the proper amount of sand. And a lot of times when they get too open with their body in the face, and they start hosling stuff, and they really make it this, they kind of, they just make too much out of it. Whereas if the average person just gets somewhat, I kind of like a solid base, a little bit left. You can use a little bit more hands to start. We don't need a massive turn because, again, what we're trying to do is trying to hit like our entry point. So if you just start using a little bit of wrist, the club can be pretty square, and we feel like we can just drive that thing down on our entry point and simplify it. So really, like, entry point drills are great. The line drill's great. And anything to just get comfortable hitting the sand and training hitting the amount of sand.
Mm-hmm.
And then going from there. Most people I see when they get in the sand, they have one speed. It's panic speed. And this ball, it's getting out. It's just, it could go anywhere.
Right.
So them to really have a solid base, be able to kind of hit their entry point and do that consistently, and really just develop one or two shots. Have like a short shot and a long shot. You don't need all these varieties. It's like, get good at hitting it 5 yards and have a shot that goes 15. And then you just kind of have baseline references, like really simple. Again, the average person, if they can get out on the green and one a lot, they're going to get better.
Yeah, that's actually perfect. I was gonna say, I know you can hit like a million shots around the greens. Do you recommend everybody just having that one stock shot then? It sounds like you said a short one and a long one. Any changes on from the short to the long one, or is it just a bigger swing or a different club?
Yeah, a little bit. For most people, I would have the same setup as often as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Then try to vary swings or clubs, so that we can simplify. We don't want to always, open the face a ton. Of course, if it's like more short-sighted for me or you, we can open the face a ton. We can get a little bit more across it if we want to kind of slow the ball down. But I'm going to recommend pretty square. Ball at times I see for people, it gets way too forward. It gets out of reach.
Okay.
So maybe having the ball a little bit more middle than they think. Again, it just allows easier access to the sand.
Mm-hmm.
So something like that, and then maybe have a half backswing and a relatively full shot at smooth tempo. See what those do, and then you can just play off those when you're playing your round.
When you said square, were you talking about square stance, or because you still
square stance, square club?
So when did that change? Because I feel like, I've been playing 25 years, and I feel like one of the first sand lessons I ever had was, you got to open, because you're opening the face, so you have to aim left. I feel like obviously that's not the case anymore, but it's like, I don't know when that changed in every Golf Digest article and every video.
Yeah, it's kind of the more modern thing. Guys are going to stand more square. They will open the face, but then what they'll do, my wedge bag here. So they'll get the face open. We're going in here. We got chapstick.
Let's go.
Okay. So they're gonna open the face, and that'll point it more right. But then they lower the handle. So if you open the face and lower the handle, that'll effectively point you straighter.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then they don't necessarily have to open as much. They can play for more of a square stance. Now, for the average person, I don't necessarily recommend like getting super low handle, super open face. I'd recommend starting from very square and then starting to open it slightly. And I see a lot of people make improvements that way rather than trying these wonky setups and face positions. It's like, start pretty square. Again, just hit a little behind the ball. I like about a ball width. Some of the benefit that we have in Arizona is it's hard to take too much sand often. So you really feel like you can swing down pretty easily, and you're not going to take too much. Whereas maybe other places with soft sand, then you have to worry about how much sand you take. But we don't have that here. So really getting people to just swing low enough and take enough sand and feel like you can take a lot of sand oftentimes.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I wanted to ask you about next. Because like when we played in that tournament at Mesa Country Club, I had a sand meltdown on the first hole. Nice little triple bogey on the easiest hole. Well, I guess it's not that easy because it was a par 4 instead of a par 5. But I hit in the bunker in 2, sculled it into the other bunker. I think I did it again back into the other bunker, got it out in 2-putt. I mean, it was just like you couldn't fucking start out worse, right? I was just like, I see that a lot because
And again, the tough thing with firm sand, so you just don't need to have it that open, right? We have to really often just dig. And I
Hmm.
like people to kind of just dig and push the club underground. It'll
Yeah.
pop, it'll come up on its own, but often we don't need to skip into this ball. It's so easy to do. So a lot of times,
Yeah.
especially in those bunkers there, again, they were not ideal.
They
They're
were so hard.
hazards. So you've got to get and keep pressure down to not
Yeah.
do this thing. And it's kind of a specialty firm dirt desert shot that unfortunately we just get a lot down here.
Yeah, I was gonna say I definitely feel that as well. And I remember when I actually was a member there, I kind of got good at that shot, and then I quit in like 2020. So it'd been a few years since I've been out there. But I remember working with a guy named Phil. He used to teach a little bit out there, and he taught me with really firm sand to kind of feel like you're hitting it more on the heel and kind of having that digging down and like not really like having a big follow through, because I used to try and open it up and then try to have a big swing, and that's why I'd hit a lot of wrong shots in the tight sand. So what's like your thought process, or are you thinking anything specific when you're hitting from firm sand?
Yeah, so you can do that. Like this part of the club can
Mm-hmm.
tend to really dig well. So advanced players, I'd recommend that. But unfortunately, I see so many shots off the heel that I
Right.
rarely move someone more heel side.
Yeah, I didn't move
But
it. It
in
was just
general,
kind of the
this
feeling. Yeah.
no, but in reality, it's actually like you can bury this heel and it'll help you get some dig.
Mm-hmm.
With that potentially using more of the toe can help you get some glide and some non-dig when needed at times.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, again, I'm a very up to down wrist action. For a lot of people, it's kind of the one feeling that does feel more this way than this wide
Mm-hmm.
around circular movement. It's kind of this V action, if you would.
Right. So or normal sand, we got two shots. We got a 5 yard and a 15 yard.
Yeah.
For hard sand, we're just not going to open the face as much, and we're going to try and get not as big of a follow through. What about super soft sand?
Yeah, so in general, the firmer the sand, the less sand you'll take, the faster the ball comes out. So let's just say I have a 15-yard shot. In firm sand, that might go 20. In
Mm-hmm.
soft sand, it might go 10. So there's certain things you can do to limit the amount of sand you take. You can have like more of a draw pattern. You can be a little bit wider, a little bit more shallow, but you want to be careful there. In general, if it's soft sand, I tell people just make the same movement and it's just going to come out shorter. You're going to take more sand, more is going to get in the way, the ball's going to come out softer. So just do your normal swing and just assume it's going to go shorter.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. So we
I
got
like,
those.
again, the simpler the better. For
Yeah.
most people, don't try to take less sand. Don't try to hit closer to the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Really limiting a lot of those things so you can have a real simple game plan every time so that you're not like on the course being like, oh, let me try this. Let me try this.
Right. Right.
Usually when you're trying stuff on the course, it's not going well.
Save the guessing and testing for practice. Yeah, that never goes well. And that's actually what I wanted to kind of finish up with the sand stuff before getting into other shots is do you always, so it sounds like you always try and hit the same spot 1.5, 2 inches behind the ball, or I mean, obviously you're a little bit better than or a lot better than all of us, but I
Yes
mean,
and
is
no.
that something people should think about?
Yeah, I like about a ball width. So I tell people if you take a golf ball and you just kind of put two of them beside each other,
Mm-hmm.
you'll kind of draw a line, put two golf balls there, take one away. About a golf ball width, I think is pretty good, and it's a good visual for people.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't always recommend hitting closer or further behind the ball.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm necessarily skilled enough to do that. So when I teach a 15 to 20 handicap, I know they're not. So pretty good frame of reference. Ball width or
Yeah.
so is a pretty safe place to be in, based
Okay.
on my experience.
Yeah, and obviously that's a ton of experience. Do you look at the golf ball, or do you look at that spot in the sand?
That's a great
That's
point.
something that people always ask me, and I finally started looking at my spot because I used to hit a lot of thin shots, and I think it's because I was looking at the ball.
That's a great point. So let's assume this is the ball here, right? And I'm looking down at it. So the challenge with this is hitting behind it is people see the ball in the bunker and they know, okay, I don't want to hit here. I need to hit somewhere back here. Well, somewhere back
Right.
here is anywhere back here. Pros like myself, we can kind of look wherever we want because we inherently know what to do. But I don't mind literally looking at the spot then you want to hit. So now we have a definitive place to hit rather than looking at something knowing we don't want to hit this somewhere here. Well, guess what? All of this counts as somewhere behind it. So it's getting a little more defined. So I always will do some testing and see what works for players, but I do like having something definitive to try and do rather than looking at something and be like, okay, now I just want to do something back here. Well, it's not as defined.
And do you have a different routine for bunkers than you do with like your short game? Because I found that like when I watch a lot of guys I play practice rounds with, like, you know, when I'm going out into a tournament, I'll just get paired with random people. The biggest thing I see with most golfers is they have zero routine for really most of their shots, but specifically with the bunkers. And to me, the routine is one of the easiest things you can do to control your mindset, because like you said, a lot of guys get into a bunker and they're like, oh shit, panic. Oh, don't leave it in there. And then they have no routine. So they take too long or they fidget around. So do you recommend players to have like a certain routine or speed it up, or what is your process with that?
Yeah, I like a routine for anyone. Number one, that works. But number two, I'm a big fan of really prepping your brain and body for what you exactly want to do. So whether that's for some people to step outside the bunker and hit the grass or hit the ground, I like trying to make the amount of swing I think I need. And I'm really, and this is easy to describe to kids. I tell them, pretend you're hitting an invisible ball exactly how you want. Like you're hitting an invisible ball into the hole. What would that look like? Rather than just doing these willy-nilly moves that we wouldn't want to do. So now we've just shown our bodies something we don't want to do. So that's almost a waste, again, unless it works. So really trying to, you know, I don't even mind like a guy like Davis Love, you know, he like steps up beside the ball, like makes his swing, steps in, and then kind of goes. So I think he's really, you know, that works for him. And he's really prepping himself for exactly what he wants, which I'm a big fan of.
So you want people to build their stance and do their kind of practice swings over the golf ball? Or do you like doing it?
Yeah, the tough thing with bunker, right, is we can't really test the ground. So if someone's working on an entry point, I don't mind getting outside the bunker, like trying to make a swing, maybe picking an object that's our entry point, trying to make a swing there, stepping in, then going. I'm a big fan of not a huge delay. So kind of feeling it, doing exactly what you want to do, stepping up, looking, and then doing what you just did. So I really think the practice swings, the rehearsal swings, are the start of the actual shot so that you can step right into the shot rather than doing something that doesn't matter, getting over the ball. And now it's like, okay, now what I need to do. It's like, well, you should have been doing that. You should have literally been doing what you want to do earlier. So I like getting people into the shot earlier like that.
Okay. With sand shots, with chipping, with pitching, do you like to look at the hole, or do you like to look at a landing spot? Or do you find one works better for certain type players and better for others?
Again, it's whatever works. In a perfect world, I like landing spots because I know that if I hit a chip and it hits my landing spot, my chipping did its job. It might take a bad bounce. I might get a bad read. Anything can happen from there, but it wasn't my chip. So now I know I can further define where I need to work. Maybe I just totally missed my spot. Well, you know, you might hit one and, you know, you're looking at the hole, you hit it a groove thin, it kicks and it goes in. That's great. We're going to take that all day.
Right.
I really didn't do my job well. So I really like landing spots. I talk about this a lot in other forms of media as well. But it tells the whole story. So if I hit a chip and I hit my landing spot, my chipping did a perfect job. Maybe my green reading didn't. Maybe I got a bad break. Maybe I hit a bad place or something like that. But I like picking spots because number one, you can practice it. And then number two, it just further lets you know how you did. Now I get it. There's times where we'll be playing, you know, in Phoenix in the summer at 1:00. And man, I don't even know if I can pick a reasonable spot. So if I'm a little brain foggy, I don't mind looking at the hole, just going back to your childhood days and be like, hey, I'm just going to feel this. I don't mind that at times. Also, if you're doing like bump and runs, you can kind of play it like a leg putt. But I like landing spots because it'll let you know how you did to a higher degree.
Okay. Yeah. And then when you're around the greens, you have so many shots. I know you can hit probably any club in the bag pretty much. What do you recommend for people? Is it like kind of the same as the bunker? Like, hey, let's keep this simple. And then as you get better, add more shots, or even with like tour players that you might work with or really, really skilled amateurs, do you see just one or two stock shots and they pretty much lean on those if they miss the green?
Yeah, again, it's whatever statistically works. So a lot of times when people come see me, it's statistically not working.
Mm-hmm.
So we can kind of build on that. For me, I'm the most boring. I can hit all the shots, but when I play a tournament, I try to land it 2 steps on and roll it to the hole. So when I go up to a short game shot, I'm always bringing 4 clubs. I bring every club up to my pitching wedge, and I'm trying to hit the most minimum shot. I'm trying to do the least amount of work I can and try to turn it into what I call a lag chip. So if I'm like 5 steps off the green, I've got 60 feet to the hole, I'm trying to land it a couple steps on and roll it out there. I'm trying to do the least amount of work. That's how I've trained it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if someone's trying to throw 60 up by the hole, again, based on, hitting a further spot away, they're doing more difficult work. It can work, but I'm trying to hit the shot. And I want most people to hit the shot that if you had to hit it 100 times, what's your best average? And for a lot of people, right, that's just putting. I don't mind that. Putt when you can, especially in Arizona where we don't have really thick grass. If you think you can putt it, totally putt it, because we're probably going to get the most consistent contact that way. Especially if you get those sketchy lies right at base at times. That ball's sitting down and I see someone get a wedge. I'm like, man, they're going to fat it or blade it.
Yeah.
It's just not going to go well.
It's just not a wicked smart play for sure.
Exactly. So I like training some minimum action. Again, a lot of people like using 60 and a lot of times it's reasonable, but I like doing the least amount of work possible because over time, I think that's going to win and it's low stress over time. Now, again, it's whatever works. So if someone comes to me, they're flying 60 by the hole and it's working well, statistically, they're great. Okay, great. That's totally fine. It's just, it's being able to short game the way you want and the way you need at the level you want to play.
I'm just so glad you said 2 things there that hopefully everyone, if anyone just could take this away, would be it. One is you take 4 clubs around the green. I see so many guys, they take 1 club and then they're standing over and be like, damn it, I wish I had 56 or gap wedge. And it's just like such a mental error. And so it's like, I'm always lugging clubs up there. And people will give me crap sometimes like, did you need to bring them all? I'm like, for mental sake, yes, I did. Yeah. And then, the second thing, you can hit every shot. But when you play in tournaments, your only thing is to keep it as simple as possible. And I feel like if everybody could just do that, they would improve immediately. Just trying to hit the boringest, simplest shots.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you want to make sure your form is reasonable, but a lot of times I'll have people practice and how I got good was just in my backyard. We didn't have any green or anything, but I would just practice landing the ball, from like 5 to 15 yards. I've found is such a common shot. And that's what I would call lag chipping. So if you just put out either tees or discs at 5 steps, 7 steps, 9, 11, 13, 15, and just practice landing them by those tees, that's really going to engulf and help you in a lot of shots you'll face. Very common up and downs. Because even times there's times you've got to kind of quantify the up and down. If it's a basic one and it feels like I should get it up and down a lot, it's probably one of those lag chips. I need to get those up and down more than like, the pins on a shelf. I'm hitting this high saucy shot. It's like, okay, it's kind of quantifying the difficulty of the up and down.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just glad you said that because I know you're the spin guy. And that's actually kind of where I wanted to go next is like, why don't more golfers create much backspin?
Yeah, that's a great point. So big things to start. It is equipment and it's terrain. So even when you come to 49er, where I teach, great place. We have an awesome facility there. A lot of times it's too grassy. It's not a friction environment, right? So that's why if anyone just teed up a ball at their course and they hit a 60-degree wedge, 20 yards, it's going to spin the most. It's a friction environment. But oftentimes you go to a course, it's too grassy to create friction, to create clean ball on club face contact. But then you go to TPC Scottsdale, where I help quite a few players, and the ball's literally teed up. Like you can spin it all day. So that's why tour
Mm.
players, at tour courses, they have the potential for friction that the average person, average place does not.
And what about equipment?
Yeah. So then you got to have a premium ball, a premium wedge. Some wedges spin more than others,
Mm-hmm.
and ping spins a ton. They're a big help for what I do. But a lot of other good companies spin as well. So having good, and even like some wedges spin more, some balls spin more. So like when I hit a lot of the super specialty shots, I use the Tiger Woods Bridgestone ball
Oh, okay.
because it spins a ton and when I need it to in that regard. So it's trying to get every ounce of RPM available for a lot of the shots I hit. There it's like fresh. I got a fresh wedge for when I'm hitting those
Right.
spinner shots. It is to try to get the most spin for the coolest Instagram videos.
I love it. I love it. Now your videos are fantastic, and we'll link to everything down in the show notes too. But one of the things too that I always try and do is replace my lob wedge a lot more because I do practice quite a bit, and like I go out to Torrey Pines for the San Diego City Am, and
Oh,
oh
sweet.
my, that course humbles me. And so, but I always make sure
Yeah.
my lob wedge is super fresh, just because. God, some of those places, I mean, you just have the hardest chips, and it's just you need as much
Mhm.
spin as possible.
Mhm.
Do you have like a recommendation for someone that's playing a couple times a week? Like how often should they replace their wedges, or do you have any sort of just kind of hit or miss?
Yeah, I mean, it's just whatever's reasonable, right? Like, I don't need, if it's your most popular wedge, that would be probably the one club you'd want to change out, maybe
Mm-hmm.
more than any in the bag, right? Like, you don't need to change out irons a bunch. You don't
Yeah.
need to change out your off wedges a bunch. But if you have that one, especially like 60 degree or your highest loft, like that's the one I hit all my spinners with.
Right.
That's the one that you would prefer the freshest wedges.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the case. But it's really whatever's reasonable. Like Tiger switches them out from what I've heard, like every 4 rounds. Some players keep them around a long time. It just depends on what you're looking for.
That's funny. I was actually just going to ask you what the pros do. So that's crazy. Every 4 rounds. Yeah, we don't quite have the
Yeah,
budget
and I
for that
think I
yet.
think for a lot of guys, it's like every couple of events, or before majors where it's big time
Yeah.
firmness, and you're kind of looking for something like that. So that's kind of what we see.
One thing too that I'm always like curious about with the short game wedges specifically is tempo, because I read the book Tour Tempo, and I'm actually having the author's son on the show coming up, and 3-to-1 tempo for full swing, and then the book Tour Tempo 2 talks about having a 2-to-1 tempo. So do you find that tempo does kind of throw people off a little bit with the short game?
Yeah. Yeah, the key is finding a tempo that works. Right. We wouldn't want it too slow, or a lot of times people get too short and quick that can handcuff them. So it's finding the tempo that works. The nice thing with tempo is you can use a metronome
Mm.
and essentially have a tangible tempo. So like when we're hitting distance wedge shots with students, I'll kind of quantify that for them so that they have a tempo that they can train under when we do some of like the clock system stuff I like to teach.
Okay. So do you have what is the metronome that I know you can just download those on your phone. I actually have the Tour Tempo app, and it has the tones and the voice
Cool.
tone. So what should people set it at? Because I think that's a pretty common question I get.
Yeah, it's anywhere from, you can do it from putting, chipping, full swing. The more like full swing, typically it's going to be a little bit longer. Let me just Google. So I just Google metronome. I like to start around 75 beats per minute.
Okay.
And then essentially the key is how you use it. It's back swing into the ball. And this is what it's again, it's like back ball. Now again, it would be like back through. But this would be like, 75 beats per minute.
Okay.
We'll say like the ball is here, right? And then I like to give it like a little pre-count. 1 and 2 and back ball.
Hmm.
1 and 2 and back ball.
Okay.
1 and 2 and back ball. So you can like somewhat build around that, and train around that if that's something that you've, desired to
Hmm.
do. So for a lot of times in the clock area, that's something I'll have students do to help, again, quantify rather than just feel. Because in my opinion, from that 30 to 100 range, I don't want to play by feel. I want to know exactly what I need to do and then hopefully call that shot up. It's just a numbers game.
Okay.
And oftentimes people will come down and I'll destroy them in 40 to 100 yards, and I never practice. I just have tangible answers. They'll try to feel all these shots, and again, it can work. It's fine. Like, we can test you out and see if you meet the metrics. But then what happens is I'll tell them what to do, and then I start beating them with them. So I'll start hitting shots closer with them than they will with them. And oftentimes that'll kind of awaken their eyes, and I'll say, I'm using you better than you. I'm hitting numbers better with you than you are. So that gives some credit to, potentially what we're working on.
So you're talking about like get to 9 o'clock. And so that is that type of, you do encourage the clockwork. Cause I remember seeing, I think it was Phil Mickelson. He had the short game secrets, like a long, 2-hour video training. And he was saying that he didn't like the clockwork because it did not increase acceleration. A lot of people decelled. So are we talking about the same, like, kind of area for that, like 30 to 60 yard shot?
I mean, it's I first saw it with Dave Pelz. I think his numbers that he uses are not ideal. I mean, they're a little too extreme in my opinion. So I've got my own numbers that I've ran that I use for my system. But again, and the ball doesn't care about your backswing. Like, the ball just cares about the speed delivered. But oftentimes, if you have a tangible tempo, if you swing to a certain spot, we can start to get pretty close to hitting those numbers a lot. And I do believe Phil does use the Pels system. He'll say like a Pels whatever. So
yeah, Pels iron when he takes a little bit off.
Yeah, so it's trying to tangibly quantify, again, because this game, like, if I'm 76 yards to the pin, depending on the situation, like, I might be trying to fly at 70. Well, then my only goal is to fly at 70 yards. Like, it's a numbers game. So for people I teach, and again, I'm for any way that works. So if someone comes in and it's good, again, we're probably not working on it. But I like my students to be able to win a wedge contest from 30 to 120 into a net with no visual.
Okay.
Because what do you do if it's a blind shot? What if it's uphill? What if the pins are small? What if it's a tall pin? What if you can't see? How are you feeling that? What are you doing? And I need a better answer than just, well, I'm going to see. Well, then that's fine. Like, you're not going to beat the guys who have a better plan. That's just what I've found. I'm very biased in this area.
Okay.
And a lot of people, some people will debate it, but then I just don't typically see them get better results. And again, do whatever you want in this game. I don't mind it, but I get a lot of people that come in to see me for that. And I don't think I've had anyone leave not getting way better. So it's again, it's an option. It's maybe not for everyone, but I couldn't imagine doing it myself that way. And when I was on tour for that event, the numbers I had in that area would have led the tour for the year. Again, small sample size, but like, I had these shots over bunkers under pressure that I'm not trying to feel them. I'm just doing what I know the shot requires, and then they worked out pretty good.
So to make this, to give an example here. So how far do you hit? I guess with, like, we'll say a stock lob wedge, for example, and then work.
Yeah. So if you're going like full, I can hit it anywhere from 90 to 105, depending on weather and situation.
Okay, perfect. Right. So let's say you have 70 yards. So when you have a 70-yard shot, you are not thinking about feel. You're like, let's say you hit it, you need to hit it 70 and the pin's, 74. So you're actually going to a certain position on the clock, and that's all you're thinking about. Or is it part of your body?
I carry. Yeah, hang on one second.
Yeah.
So I carry, and this is something I do for a lot of students. Right. So not to give away all my info, but in my yardage book, I carry my numbers.
Yeah.
So if it's 70, if it's 70 yards, depending what I want to do, like, I could do a 10 o'clock 60 degree. I could do my 9 o'clock 55 degree if it's like a back pin. I've got a lot of options. I can do a ton of stuff, but I have a tangible thing. It's like, okay, I close my book and I call it up. Like, I have this is a cheat code. I feel like I'm playing golf with 40 clubs.
Right.
But I'm just calling up a club. Like, I feel like it's such an advantage. And again, when it comes to just feeling these shots, if you want to play at the highest level, I just can't imagine just maybe having to practice 20 hours a week and just hoping your feel is good that day, rather than just being like, oh, here's my solution. I'm very biased in that area. I'm very biased. I've just seen it work for too many people to not be as biased as I am.
No, that's fantastic. You obviously are extremely accomplished and have given thousands of lessons. So I'm glad you brought that up because that's something that I don't feel like I have a lot of room to improve on. And so that kind of gets to the next point of like practice. Like how are we practicing this stuff? Do you like more the net simulator, or do you like going out and doing that to try and learn the different distances that we want to hit each club?
Yeah. So what I'll do, and this is, and again, I don't have the time I used to have, but I did these big Friday clinics. We'd have, again, 30 to 50 people, and I would go set out objects, bag stands, coolers, cones. And we do this again, we do this wedge class, and I kind of teach them and talk about, some of the positions that we can use. And of all the classes I would teach, smashing driver, all the short game stuff, everything you can imagine, it was shocking to me how many people really liked that class and say they used that class more than anything. It was just shocking. I thought they would like driver or kind of all these other more exciting things, but they said that class had the most value. And this is 30 to, new players starting to build skill around this and get the idea that they don't always have to have like a full swing.
Mm-hmm.
So I like, just like in general, I would want someone. We would work on what I called the wedge setup. We would work on the wedge tempo, which is a metronome. We'd have some amount of backswing length. And again, we can vary. We can do body parts. We can do clock. We can do whatever you want. But to just have a tangible way to hit the ball 50 yards in the air, 60 yards in the air, 70 yards in the air, to have just tangible answers.
Mm-hmm.
And again, so I might not hit I might miss execute, but 40 to 100, I will never miss plan. I will never have a bad plan. I will absolutely miss execute. It'll be user error, but the plan was great.
Right.
The plan is spot on, and it's just my fault.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I'm decade golf. I'm super geeky. I got Google Earth and at Putt View sending me books every day. I mean, like I map everything out, but I feel like that's definitely one that myself and I think a lot of people could probably just improve on, just because, like you said, feel isn't always as reliable, and you don't really have that built-in system for it.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you have time to practice, and again, if you can meet certain metrics, like from 30 to 60 yards, if you can get within 2 yards either way. So if it's 60 yards, if you're 62 or 58, great. If it's 60 to 100 and you're within 3 a lot, great, like a lot. But oftentimes I'll see people just feel it and they're 12 yards off. I'm like, that's so bad. So I'll penalize players for being more than 5 yards off. And then if that's the requirement, they start to say, well, geez, I don't want to feel it anymore. And that's kind of what it takes at times. And it's really just seeing what, again, statistically works in events. So a lot of times people say, well, I feel pretty good 50 to 100. That just means they usually hit the ball solid and, they it feels fine. But the stats would maybe beg to differ and say, well, you know what? You're actually terrible in this yardage.
Yeah.
So I love stats to just show you that. And I'm good friends with Scott, and he's came down and we've done some work on some of the leg chipping stuff and some other stuff. But I love quantifying. And I love tangible info. Like, just, I don't really care if you feel like you're good at it. What do the stats say when you're in a tournament? What do they say? Because that's what I care about. I don't care if you feel good in practice with your friends. When you play tournaments, are you great?
Sounds like I'm going to be making a road trip to Tucson. So it sounds like.
Yeah, we got come on down. We got a lot of people coming down. It's a great place. It's a great place.
No, I'm being serious too. That's really, really good. And I think that kind of answers my question. But for people that are trying to figure out like what is the best way to practice their short game, it sounds like you want them to be measuring out, maybe using a launch monitor if they can, and starting to figure out these distances versus just randomly hitting on the golf course.
Yeah, so again, there's around the green, maybe within 30 yards, we'll say, and then kind of 30 to 40 is kind of the breaking point from short game to maybe clock system or, half wedges, if you would. So there's different ways to practice that. But really, and I have a video online on my website where I kind of go through my system, but it would essentially be just like, I can practice my 9 o'clock swing with a metronome and a mirror. I don't need a ball.
Oh, great.
I'm just trying to make, I could call that swing, I could call it X, and that X should do something. I don't even care how far you hit it. But that just goes to show, if I'm on the course and I can call up that swing, hopefully the ball will do X. It will do, what I want it to do. So like
That's
you
a
don't
good
need
off
all.
season. Yeah, that's a good off
Oh,
season
totally. Yeah,
strategy
you
then.
just
Yeah.
again, we're just trying to make certain swings.
Hmm.
And again, for some people, maybe it feels mechanical, but it's just not. You can tell people just either don't want to do it and they fight it, and that's fine. Like you can
Hmm.
stink on your own. Like you feel free to stink in that range. It's your,
Yeah.
it's your job. So just, hope your feels good.
Totally. Cool, man. Well, just a couple of last questions is I know you play a lot of tournament golf. A lot of my listeners have, are in tournaments, starting to get into tournaments. And that is so fun to me. It's like why I do what I like. I love tournament golf. I don't even really play casual rounds. I'm pretty much just like practice rounds and tournaments.
Yeah.
Like that's what I live for. So, what is like one thing that you think that a beginner should try and do when they're just getting into tournaments? Is it just starting? Is it going in there with a process, or what do you think is like just an easy tip to help people? Because I know that the nerves get the best of us sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. I love, and like I played yesterday with, Shane and them. I can't tell you the last time I've played a round that's not a tournament. So I just play in every event. I love tournament golf. I'm super comfortable in it. So the big part for people is you have to play a lot. So when some people play in one tournament a year and they have all this buildup around it, they're never going to play well, because the thing with tournaments, I tell people, I don't care how you do. Tournaments are the ultimate test. And I've always loved taking tests. Like
Hmm.
people don't. Man, in college, if I would have a 100% final test. I love being tested. I love trying to figure things out. So the thing that a tournament will show you is it will really just show you where you're at, which is great because you can practice and you can play more tournaments. It doesn't matter how you do, but it will show you what's actually good and what's not. Right. And then you don't want to have one sample size. You want to play in a bunch of events. So all my kids, I want to play in tons of events. The more tournaments, the merrier. The more where you have to sign a scorecard, where you have to play by the rules. It's easy to play well with your buddies, but when you're in a tournament, that's all I care about. I really don't care how it goes outside of tournament play for those tournament players, because
Hmm.
everything's comfortable when you're with your buddies, when you're listening to tunes, when everything's going great. But when you're uncomfortable playing with people you don't like on a course you don't like, the weather's bad, you got to toughen up and we got to see what you're made of. And that's going to show you, again, where you can continue to improve. So tournaments are really great for just showing you where you're actually at, not where you think you're at, where you're actually at.
Love that. Yeah, I'm gonna repeat that over and over again on social media because so many people just are like, "Why? Should I do it? Should I not?" I'm like,
Yes,
"Do it
you should.
just to learn about what you need to improve, if
Yep.
anything else."
Yep. And again, I tell people the first tournament, you're going to suck. You're never going to do good. No one does good. Don't worry about it. You finish and you just learn and you do the next one. That's what you do.
Hmm. I can't stand people that don't sign scorecards and give up and in tournaments. That is
Yeah.
like my
Yep.
pet peeve.
Yep.
Just
Never
it's
done
one thing
that.
if you're hurt or you're injured. Yeah, no, me neither. I'd shoot 95, sign that thing
Hmm.
before I see
Yep.
that. But yeah, you gotta learn from it, and there's so many valuable lessons from it when you play in tournaments. Plus, when you track stats, like you said, you're gonna have the data. You're gonna know what to work on. And before we get into the last question about your awesome golf tournament, again, what is the best place for people to learn more about you and work with you if they want to do anything online or come visit you?
Yeah. The best way to contact me and get to me is my website, www.golfbettertucson.com. Essentially everything Golf Better Tucson is going to be me. Instagram's probably my best, probably my most active social media. I get a ton of messages, so I like to set everything up through my website. So there's a contact page on my site. You can email me also at golfbettertucson@gmail.com. But that's the best way. It's got my lesson info on there. I want to set everything up through the email. I just get too many messages online and I like being very precise with my schedule. So the
Totally.
best way is probably the website, golfbettertucson.com.
Cool. Well, we'll link to everything down below. And wanted to just end on, one of the themes when I was doing the research was just like, you love golf, I love golf, and you made one of the coolest golf dreams ever come true. You qualified for a PGA Tour event. You had Instagram army rooting for you. You had the
Yeah, that's
whole,
great.
you had everybody there. Tell us a little bit just about the experience. You qualified. It was a 1-day qualifier. But then all of a sudden you like did it. Now what? Like, what was that like going and just playing practice rounds and meeting PGA guys and
Mhm.
just love to learn a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the advantage I had was being able to work with, some players like Max Homa and some of these guys that are so good. Like they're the top of the game, and I've been real comfortable and got to know quite a few. So I'm very comfortable around those players. So it's a huge advantage, right? Because if I was going out there, I didn't know anyone, I'd feel really like a fish out of water, I guess. But
Mhm.
also, I'm such a fan of the game, and I've got, I think on my podcast, which it's been a while since I've had time to do that, but I talk about, I'm not afraid to go up to people and say, hey, I'm a PGA pro. This is, I'm a big fan of yours. Like I'm not afraid to introduce myself, let them know where I'm at, and then when they kind of know, they're like, oh, they're so nice,
Mhm.
and I have some great stories. They're just great people. All the a lot of the coaches are great. I've become friends with them just on social media and all that. So, and then the fans don't know that I'm just there for 1 week, right? They think I'm a tour guy. They're all like, hey, good luck next week if you don't make it. And the whole experience is just so cool. You get treated like royalty. The people are like really overly nice, and I saw a lot of the tour players, being very nice, but you just get treated like such royalty. The food's incredible. So we just, even though I missed the cut, we ate there like Saturday, Sunday, and we just go watch. It's so awesome. The food's just amazing. The people are so great. Facilities are great. It was just the greatest time for my parents, my wife, myself. My brother, with so many students and friends came down, so it's just like this celebration of golf. And yeah, I was hitting it so bad, but I would, for a period of time, I was just making all these like 7-foot sliders for par. So people were just going bananas for me, like just chipping out of a bush and getting it up and down for par, and it was so awesome. And I loved every second of it.
That's so cool, man.
And
Those those
yeah,
seven
I hope to do it
footers are
again.
probably in the memory bank, though, man. That's
Oh
confidence for
yeah.
any other
But
tournament.
that's the best part of my game. I've trained it, like I was ready to make all of those. Again, like based
Mhm.
on our talk of scrambling. I'm ready to make 7-foot sliders, 18 straight holes. That's fine.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that had to be cool, and I'm impressed that you were able to go out there and act like it was just another normal round and have a lot of fun. And I forgot to ask, who was your caddy for that event?
So I had the best caddy possible. His name is Mike McLaughlin. He is a member at TPC Summerlin. He did a fantastic job, really great with everything. So that was a big advantage for me. He was outstanding. It was anything that was the problem was just just me.
That had to be cool though. So I mean, he's obviously worked there a lot. Are you like trying to take a lot of his advice, or are you just trying to do your own thing, and then if you have questions,
Yeah,
ask him? Because
yeah,
I
we
feel
were
like
great. We were great. Like, because he would kind of know. So, I'm not a huge fan of like things breaking towards the strip, but he just knows the
mm,
course so well. So he's a member
yeah.
there. Great player, awesome guy, great player, golf geek, in the best way. So really gave just awesome info on some of the little things. Um, yeah, he couldn't have done a better job.
That's cool, man. Well, you gonna make it happen again this year? Give it another chance?
I would love to have another chance, and then also feel like I'm playing well. That would be the next thing. That would be so fun.
Love it. You got waste management qualifier too coming up?
Yeah, we do, but the bummer here is it's like it gets you 3 spots into the Monday, so then it's 3 club pros versus 200 tour players for 3 spots. And yeah, you bet I'll play because I love to play. I'll play in everything, but hard to do.
Yes, yes. The odds are definitely stacked against that tournament, but just never know what can happen. And I know
Yeah,
you got the
yep,
game. So, well,
sure.
thank you again for dealing with the technical issues on our end, for sharing so much with the audience, and just being a good dude, man. I'm really always rooting for you. And thanks again for being a part of Wicked Smart Golf.
Yeah, you as well, my friend. That was fun.